The monitoring station orbiting the third planet had been quiet for exactly 17 cycles. Not the peaceful kind of quiet that suggested successful containment, but the unsettling kind that made veteran technicians check their equipment twice and curse under their breath in languages their mothers would disapprove of. Keth-9 adjusted another sensor array and glanced at his colleague. "Run the diagnostic again." "I've run it 6 times, Earl muttered, her tentacles dancing across holographic controls with practiced irritation. "The quantum barriers are intact. The electromagnetic dampeners are functioning at 97% efficiency. Every conventional transmission method from that mudball is being absorbed, redirected, or scrambled into cosmic background noise." "Then explain this." Keth-9 projected the anomalous readings into their shared workspace. Irel's chromatophores shifted to a pale yellow, the Zenthari equivalent of raising an eyebrow. That's not possible. And yet, the data was undeniable. Something was broadcasting from Earth. Not through the blocked conventional channels, not via quantum entanglement, and certainly not through any of the hyperspace frequencies the hegemony had so carefully severed. This was something else entirely. "The frequency signature is bizarre," Irel continued, her analytical mind already dissecting the puzzle. "It's almost like they're broadcasting on multiple wavelengths simultaneously, but only the ones that our equipment barely registers as existing." Keth-9's gill slits fluttered, his species' version of a thoughtful hum. "Pull up the biological database. Cross-reference these frequencies with predator species neural patterns." "Why would you—" Irel stopped mid-sentence as the correlation appeared on screen. Her chromatophores cycled through several alarmed colors before settling on deep purple. "Oh, you have to be joking." "The humans figured out which frequencies evolved predators naturally tune into for hunting," Keth-9 said, his voice carrying the kind of admiration usually reserved for particularly elegant disasters. "Frequencies that civilized species learn to suppress or ignore as part of their social development. That's impossible. They've been isolated for less than 2 decades. How could they possibly know enough about galactic biology to—" "Remember what species we're dealing with," Keth-9 interrupted. "These are the beings who looked at nuclear fission and thought, let's make this into a weapon first, power source second. The same species that invented recreational skydiving and competitive eating." Irel's tentacles went still. "You think they've been studying us?" "I think they've been studying everything. Every diplomatic transmission we've ever sent, every cultural exchange program, every benevolent observation mission. They've probably analyzed our social structures, identified our evolutionary weak points, and mapped our collective psychology with the same thoroughness they once applied to splitting atoms." The implications hung in the recycled air like a toxic cloud. Earth's isolation hadn't been punishment. It had been education. "Sir," a junior technician interrupted from across the station, his voice carrying the particular strain that suggested career-limiting discoveries. "I'm detecting response signals." "Response signals?" Irel's chromatophores went white. "From 17 different systems, all predator-dominant species. The Kavath hunters, the Sreltak packs, even the Mordanian war clans." The technician's hands trembled as he expanded the display. "They're all acknowledging Earth's transmissions." Keth-9 studied the data with growing unease. "The humans aren't just broadcasting into the void. They're having conversations." "With who?" Irel demanded. "With everyone we spent the last few millennia convincing to behave themselves." The monitoring station's alert systems began chiming, a gentle, almost musical warning that someone was about to have a very bad day. More response signals appeared on the display, each one representing a species that had supposedly evolved beyond their predatory instincts. "How long have these transmissions been active?" Keth-9 asked. "Unknown, sir. Our equipment wasn't designed to detect these frequencies. They could have been talking for months without us knowing. Irril's tentacles resumed their agitated dance across the controls. We need to contact the hegemony immediately. This changes everything. Does it? Keth-9 mused. Or did the humans simply reveal what was always true? That civilized society is just predatory society with better table manners. You're suggesting the hegemony is built on a lie? I'm suggesting the humans figured out that evolution doesn't stop just because you invent philosophy and table settings. They found the frequency that speaks directly to what we really are, underneath all the diplomatic niceties. Another alert chimed, then another. The display showed response signals cascading across the galaxy like wildfire, each one representing a species rediscovering instincts they'd forgotten they possessed. They're not trying to break free from isolation, Irril realized, her voice barely above a whisper. They're using isolation as a recruitment tool. Exactly. They can't reach us through civilized channels, so they're bypassing civilization entirely. They're speaking predator to predator, hunter to hunter. Keth-9's gill slits fluttered again, this time with something approaching respect. It's actually quite brilliant, and absolutely terrifying. The humans had done something that should have been impossible. They'd turned their punishment into an advantage, their isolation into influence, their containment into communication. They'd found the one frequency that civilized species couldn't hear, because they'd convinced themselves they'd evolved beyond needing to listen. Sir, the junior technician called, out again, his voice now several octaves higher. The response signals are getting stronger, and they're moving. Moving how? Toward the Sol system. Irrel and Keth-9 exchanged a look that needed no translation across species barriers. They were no longer monitoring a containment breach. They were watching the first stages of something much worse. Contact the hegemony, Keth-9 ordered. Tell them the humans have found a way to weaponize evolution itself. And tell them what exactly? That Earth discovered how to make civilized species remember they used to be killers? Tell them, Keth-9 said, watching as more response signals lit up the display like a constellation of bad decisions, that humanity's real talent isn't for war or diplomacy or even survival. It's for finding the one thing you're absolutely certain can't happen, and then making it happen anyway. The monitoring station continued its lonely orbit, its sensors dutifully recording the end of the galaxy as they knew it, one predatory response signal at a time. Dr. Vexhai had dissected precisely 437 different species during her career, but she'd never encountered anything quite like the data packet floating in her laboratory's containment field. The intercepted human transmission looked harmless enough, a string of mathematical equations wrapped around what appeared to be cultural exchanges. Innocent as a nursery rhyme, if nursery rhymes typically included detailed anatomical analyses of 17 different predator species' hunting methodologies. Tell me again how we acquired this, she said to her research partner, a methodical Calaxian named Bruntel, whose species had perfected the art of academic paranoia over several millennia. Passive interception during the Mordanian response burst, Bruntel replied, his 4 eyes independently tracking different sections of data. The humans embedded this within their standard greeting protocol, like hiding a dissection manual inside a dinner invitation. Vexhai manipulated the holographic display, isolating specific segments of the transmission. Look at this section here. They've mapped the Sreltak Pack neural pathways with surgical precision, not just the obvious hunting triggers, but the deeper psychological structures, pack bonding mechanisms, territorial imperatives, resource competition drives. Information that should have taken decades of direct observation to compile, Bruntel noted. Yet they've extrapolated it from our own scientific publications we thought were safely theoretical. They turned our research against us. Vexhai's appreciation was tinged with professional horror. Every xenobiology paper, every evolutionary study, every diplomatic briefing we've ever produced, they've been reverse engineering our psychology from our own data. The implications were staggering. The humans had been isolated for barely 2 decades, yet they'd constructed psychological profiles of species that had taken the hegemony centuries to understand. Not just profiles, but operational manuals. This section is particularly disturbing, Bruntel said, highlighting another segment. They've identified the exact neurochemical cocktail that triggers Caveth hunting frenzy, and they're broadcasting the formula. Broadcasting it how? Embedded in mathematical proofs about stellar formation. Any Caveth mathematician who processes these equations will experience a cascade response in their predatory centers. They'll think they're learning astronomy while their brains are being rewired for aggression. Vexhai felt her respiratory organs constrict. They're not just communicating with predator species, they're activating them. It gets worse. Look at the cultural analysis sections. The next data cluster made Vexhai's natural pessimism seem optimistically naive. The humans had dissected galactic civilization with the thoroughness of a pathologist examining a corpse. Every species' suppressed instincts, every civilization's buried aggressive impulses, every carefully constructed social contract designed to maintain peace, all mapped, catalogued, and weaponized. They understand us better than we understand ourselves, she whispered. More accurately, they understand what we were before we convinced ourselves we'd evolved beyond it, Bruntel corrected. They're not impressed by our civilization. They see it as camouflage. The laboratory's communication array chimed with an incoming priority message. Vexhai accepted the transmission, expecting updates from their monitoring stations. Instead, she found herself face to face with Commander Theklos of the Hegemony Council, whose expression suggested someone had just explained advanced mathematics using nothing but profanity. Doctor, I need your team's assessment of Earth's transmission content immediately. Commander, the humans have essentially written instruction manuals for dissolving civilized behavior. They're not trying to join galactic society. They're recruiting from its shadow. Theklos' mandibles clicked in agitation. Recruiting for what? Unknown, sir. But they've included detailed tactical analyses of every major trade route, defense installation, and political alliance in our databases. They know our weaknesses better than our own military planners. How is that possible? Vexhai exchanged a glance with Bruntel. Because we told them, Commander. Every diplomatic mission, every cultural exchange, every peaceful observation expedition, we've been providing them with intelligence for decades without realizing it. They've been studying galactic civilization the way we might study microorganisms, Bruntel added, with clinical detachment and surgical precision. The commander's expression grew darker. Doctor, are you telling me that humanity's isolation was ineffective because we inadvertently provided them with a comprehensive education in galactic vulnerabilities? I'm telling you their isolation was never about punishment, sir. It was about preparation. They've used these 20 years to map our entire civilization, identify its structural weaknesses, and develop countermeasures for every defensive strategy we possess. And now they're sharing this information with every predator species in the galaxy. Not sharing, Commander. Trading. Look at the response patterns from the Mordanian war clans. They're not just acknowledging Earth's transmissions, they're providing reciprocal intelligence about hegemony military positions. The implications hit Theklos like a physics lesson delivered via asteroid impact. They're building an alliance of predators. An alliance of species we spent millennia convincing to suppress their natural instincts, Vexhai confirmed. Species that are now rediscovering why those instincts existed in the first place. The humans are offering them something we never could, Bruntel observed. Permission to be what they actually are instead of what we convinced them they should become. Commander Thekalos was quiet for several moments, processing the scope of humanity's strategy. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of civilizations, realizing they'd been outmaneuvered by beings they'd dismissed as primitive. Doctor, in your professional opinion, how long do we have before this alliance becomes operational? Vexhai consulted her analysis one final time. Based on the response patterns and the tactical information being exchanged, the first coordinated movements should begin within cycles. But Commander, I don't think their goal is military conquest. Then what? Replacement. They're not trying to destroy galactic civilization, sir. They're trying to prove it was never real in the first place. They want to demonstrate that all our laws and treaties and diplomatic protocols are just elaborate methods of pretending we're something other than what evolution made us. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Vexhai and Bruntel alone with the most comprehensive demolition manual ever created. A guide to dismantling civilization written by beings who'd never been allowed to join it. You know what the truly frightening part is? Bruntel said after a long silence. What? They might be right. Ambassador Quelith had negotiated 17 peace treaties, mediated 43 trade disputes, and once convinced 2 warring species to settle their differences through competitive poetry. But nothing in her diplomatic training had prepared her for the document currently displayed on her secured workstation. A formal invitation to conquest, written with the cheerful precision of a dinner party guest list. "Read Section 12 again," requested Colonel Vornak, the hegemony's chief military strategist, whose tactical genius was currently being thoroughly humiliated by beings who'd discovered fire approximately 5 minutes ago in galactic terms. "Dear potential conquerors," Quelith began, her translator struggling with the document's bizarrely polite tone, "Earth cordially invites you to our complete subjugation. Please find attached comprehensive invasion routes, defensive weaknesses, resource extraction potentials, and optimal landing zones. Refreshments will not be provided, but the screaming should be adequately entertaining." "They include tactical maps," Vornak muttered, reviewing the attachments with professional horror. "Detailed schematics of their military installations, population centers, and industrial infrastructure. It's the most thorough intelligence package I've ever seen, and they're giving it away to anyone willing to attack them." Quelith scrolled through additional sections, each more unsettling than the last. "Listen to this. For your convenience, we've identified the 17 most efficient methods of planetary bombardment, including optimal timing to maximize civilian casualties while preserving industrial assets. Please note that Tuesdays are inadvisable due to weather patterns that would interfere with atmospheric entry trajectories." "They've turned invasion planning into customer service," Vornak observed, with grudging admiration. "They're not just offering themselves as targets, they're providing consulting services for their own conquest." The communication array activated, displaying the stern visage of High Counselor Nexthul, whose expression suggested someone attempting to maintain dignified composure while discovering their entire worldview was built on quicksand. "Ambassador Colonel, we've confirmed that similar invitations have been transmitted to every aggressive species currently responding to Earth's frequency broadcasts. The humans appear to be organizing a competitive bidding war for their own destruction." "High Counselor," Quelith began carefully, "our linguistic analysis suggests these documents aren't genuine surrender offers. The undertones are wrong. There's too much enthusiasm." "Enthusiasm for self-destruction is a documented human trait," Nexthul replied. "They call it extreme sports and consider it recreational." "No, sir, this is different. They're not suicidal. They're strategic. Every piece of intelligence they're providing serves a dual purpose. Yes, it would facilitate planetary invasion, but it would also guarantee that multiple hostile forces arrive simultaneously with identical information." Colonel Vornak's understanding crystallized with audible certainty. "They're engineering a traffic jam in their own solar system, with everyone carrying the exact same roadmap. Precisely. And look at the timing recommendations they've provided. Quelith projected the invasion schedules into their shared display. Every species receives slightly different optimal attack windows that ensure maximum temporal convergence while maintaining the illusion of strategic uniqueness. They want their conquerors to collide with each other, Nexthul realized. More than that, Vornak said, his tactical mind mapping the implications. They've calculated the exact arrival patterns that would generate maximum confusion and friendly fire incidents. They're not inviting conquest, they're orchestrating chaos. The display updated with new intelligence from monitoring stations across 17 systems. Predator fleets were mobilizing, each one armed with identical tactical packages, and convinced they possessed exclusive information about Earth's vulnerabilities. The Kavath hunters launched 6 hours ago, reported an aide's voice through the communication array. The Sreltak packs departed 3 hours later. The Mordanian war clans are currently debating whether to deploy their entire armada or just their forward elements. All heading for the same coordinates, Quelith noted. All planning to arrive within the same temporal window. All convinced they're participating in a simple planetary conquest. And the humans? Nexthul inquired. Vornak consulted his tactical displays. According to their own intelligence packages, they have minimal space-based defenses, obsolete weaponry, and approximately 7 billion panicking civilians with nowhere to run. You don't believe that assessment? High Counselor, these are beings who included helpful footnotes about their own ammunition storage locations while somehow forgetting to mention they've spent 20 years reverse engineering our technology from diplomatic gifts and cultural exchanges. Their obsolete weaponry probably includes innovations we haven't invented yet. Quelith highlighted another section of the invitation documents. There's something else. Hidden within the tactical recommendations, they've included detailed psychological profiles of every species they've contacted. Not just general behavioral patterns, specific command structure analyses, traditional tactical preferences, cultural blind spots. They know how each species will react to finding other predators in their territory, Nexthul concluded. They've wargamed the entire scenario, multiple hostile fleets arriving simultaneously, each one following battle plans designed to maximize conflict with the others, while the humans sit back and watch their problems solve themselves through mutual annihilation. The communication array chimed with priority updates from field operatives. More fleets launching, more species taking the bait, more participants in humanity's carefully orchestrated disaster. The truly remarkable aspect, Vornak mused, is that they're not lying about anything. Every piece of intelligence they've provided is completely accurate. They really do have minimal space defenses, limited military assets, and vulnerable population centers. But, Quelith prompted, but accuracy isn't truth. They're showing everyone exactly what they want them to see, while ensuring that seeing it becomes catastrophically self-defeating. Tikurum, Counselor Nexthul processed the implications with visible distress. Are you suggesting that humanity has manipulated 17 different predator species into eliminating each other, while simultaneously removing the hegemony's most aggressive members from galactic politics? I'm suggesting, Quelith replied, that they've turned their own conquest into a recruitment examination. Whoever survives the resulting chaos gets to negotiate with beings who just demonstrated they can eliminate multiple spacefaring civilizations without firing a single shot. And if no one survives? Then they've solved the predator problem permanently while maintaining complete deniability. After all, they were just innocent victims offering helpful information to their future conquerors. The display updated again. More fleets launching. More species accepting humanity's generous invitation to their own strategic suicide. High Counselor, Vornak said quietly, I believe we're witnessing the most sophisticated military strategy in recorded galactic history. and it's being executed by beings we classified as too primitive for standard diplomatic contact. Colonel, in your professional military opinion, what should our response be? Vornak studied the tactical displays one final time before answering. Prayer, sir. Lots and lots of prayer. The Sol system had become the galaxy's most popular destination for all the wrong reasons. Captain Jektar of the Kaveth Hunters watched his tactical display with growing unease as 17 different fleets materialized from hyperspace jumps, each one apparently surprised to discover they weren't alone at humanity's doorstep. Captain, his weapons officer reported, the Sreltak pack vessels are targeting our port flank. The Mordanian war clans are broadcasting territorial challenges on 7 different frequencies, and something called the Terran Broadcasting Network is requesting permission to film our battle formations. They want to what? Film us, sir, for something called documentation purposes. They're offering to provide live commentary and statistical analysis of our combat effectiveness. Jektar's predatory instincts warred with his growing suspicion that the situation had spiraled beyond anyone's tactical comprehension. Open a channel to the human vessels. The main display flickered to life, revealing a human female seated in what appeared to be a broadcast studio rather than a military command center. Behind her, wall-mounted screens showed tactical positions of every fleet in the system with the casual precision of a sports commentary booth. Good evening, Captain Jektar, the human said with unsettling cheerfulness. I'm Director Chen of the Terran Conflict Mediation Service. We've been expecting you. You know who I am? Of course. You're commanding the Kaveth third-generation hunter-killer formation, optimized for pack tactics against numerically superior opponents. Your tactical preference is aggressive frontal assault followed by coordinated flanking maneuvers. You also have a tendency to underestimate opponents who don't immediately display threatening behavior. Jektar's mandibles clicked in irritation. You're remarkably well-informed for beings about to be conquered. About that, Director Chen continued, gesturing toward her tactical displays. We've received conquest declarations from 17 different fleets, all of whom seem convinced they possess exclusive intelligence about our vulnerabilities. Would you like to compare notes? Another communication channel opened unbidden, revealing Captain Srelvan of the pack vessels. Humans, you will surrender your planet immediately or face. He stopped mid-sentence as he noticed Jektar's image on his shared display. What are the hunters doing here? Claiming territory that belongs to the war clans, announced a third voice as the Mordanian commander forced his way into the conversation. This system was promised to us in exchange for... His expression shifted as he realized he was broadcasting to his competitors. Why are we all sharing communication frequencies? Director Chen smiled with the patience of a teacher, explaining basic arithmetic to particularly slow students. Because we provided you with the same communication protocols along with your tactical packages, just as we provided you with identical arrival coordinates, similar invasion timetables, and equivalent intelligence assessments. The silence that followed could have been weaponized. You manipulated us, Jektar growled. We invited you, Director Chen corrected. Multiple times to multiple species, with complete transparency about our defensive capabilities and resource values. The manipulation was your assumption that you were the only ones receiving these invitations. Captain Srelvan's pack-bonding instincts finally processed the implications. You wanted us to encounter each other. We wanted to meet our neighbors, Director Chen replied. All of them, simultaneously, under circumstances that would reveal their true natures without the pretense of civilized behavior. This is a trap, the Mordanian commander declared. This is a job interview, Director Chen countered, for 17 positions in Earth's new galactic initiative. The human director manipulated her display controls, and suddenly every fleet commander could see detailed analyses of their rivals' tactical formations, weapons capabilities, and psychological profiles. Not human analyses, assessments compiled by the other participating species during their preparation phases. "You've all been studying each other," Director Chen observed. "Calculating advantages, identifying weaknesses, planning contingencies for potential conflicts. Excellent work, by the way. Very thorough." Jektar watched his competitors' formations with new understanding. "You collected our intelligence on each other. We facilitated information sharing between potential business partners. Think of this as a networking event with weapons." "What kind of business?" Srelvin demanded. Director Chen's expression shifted to something resembling satisfaction. "The business of replacing a galactic civilization that's forgotten what it means to survive. You see, the hegemony has spent centuries convincing everyone that evolution stops at the borders of polite society. They've created a galaxy full of predators pretending to be philosophers, warriors cosplaying as diplomats. And you disapprove? We think it's inefficient, also boring." Director Chen activated new displays showing hegemony trade routes, defense installations, and political structures. "Your species were apex predators long before anyone invented treaties and table manners. The hegemony convinced you to suppress those instincts in exchange for civilization's benefits. But what if civilization's benefits aren't worth what you gave up?" The implications crystallized across 17 different tactical command centers simultaneously. Humanity wasn't offering conquest opportunities. They were recruiting for a hostile takeover of galactic society itself. "You want us to abandon the hegemony," the Mordanian commander realized. "We want you to remember what you were before the hegemony convinced you to become something less dangerous, something more manageable." Jektar's predatory instincts finally aligned with his strategic understanding. "You're proposing an alliance of predators." "We're proposing an alliance of beings who understand that strength doesn't require apology and survival doesn't require permission. The hegemony maintains order by convincing everyone that their natural instincts are shameful mistakes to be overcome. We think your natural instincts are valuable resources to be utilized." Captain Srelvin leaned forward in his command chair. "What makes you think we won't simply conquer Earth and divide your resources among ourselves?" Director Chen's smile became genuinely predatory. "Because you've spent the last 6 hours demonstrating that you can't cooperate long enough to conquer a single planet with minimal defenses. How exactly do you plan to manage a galactic empire?" The silence returned, heavier and more thoughtful. "However," Director Chen continued, "if you're interested in learning how Earth managed to manipulate 17 different predator species into gathering at precisely the right time and place to have this conversation, we'd be happy to provide additional consulting services." Jektar studied his tactical displays one final time, noting how perfectly positioned every fleet was for either mutual destruction or coordinated action, depending on the participants' choices. Humanity had engineered the entire scenario with the precision of a master strategist and the audacity of beings who treated impossibility as a mild inconvenience. "Director Chen," he said finally, "I believe we need to discuss terms." "Excellent. Welcome to the beginning of Galactic Civilization's retirement party. We think you'll find the benefits package quite competitive." The Sol system continued its rotation, now serving as the unofficial headquarters of the galaxy's newest and most dangerous employment agency, where the job requirements included abandoning everything you thought you knew about how civilized beings were supposed to behave.